For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nate Bay. I'm the Global Business Development Manager of Shared Mobility with Geotab. Prior to transitioning to this role as the global focus on car sharing and the technology that we've released with Geotab Keyless, I spent a lot of my time developing local government agencies in California. So I did help with the participation with the state contract that was awarded to Geotab for all state agencies. And I've worked with a lot of local governments as well to have them adopt essentially our telematics portion of the business. But since then, I've transitioned into this global role, and I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing from the aspect of keyless today. Next slide, please. You there, Gina? Okay, cool. So just a very quick background about who Geotab is, if you're unfamiliar with us. Started in North America in 2000, currently have an ecosystem of 400 partners that we work with, from our channel resellers to partners that we do integration with our reservation systems. I think I started as employee number 250 or 300 a little over 3 years ago, and now we're well over 1,200, closer to 1,350 employees. 700 of those being technical employees as well, just really spending time developing our product. We are actually the largest commercially telematics provider in the world globally. We have well over 2.1 million connected vehicles on our platform today, and named ABI Research #1 commercial telematics provider 2 years in a row, 19 and 20. Next slide. And so we are very fortunate to work with a variety of different customers. A few well-known names that you guys would be familiar with are PepsiCo. We work with the guys that have the brown trucks, their entire fleet, and then have a very high focus on strategic customers in the government space, but also working with mom and pops that have one vehicle, and we scale all the way up to customers that have 200,000 vehicles as well. So specifically in California on the call here today, we do own that state agency. They did make it a mandate that they deploy Geotab on all state agency vehicles. They published that, I think, on their website a little over 2 weeks ago. And so to hit some key areas of focus as well, from electrifying their fleet and just the overall surrounding ROI that comes from telematics. And so we're super excited. Over the next year, the mandate is to have Geotab equipped on all light duty for the first half of the year, and then all other assets the second half as well. And so we're able to pull some really cool aggregated data that we pull back and present to our end customers as well, which I'll talk about in the very last slide of this presentation. So next slide, please, Gina. So as mentioned, our core functionality here really is the telematics, but if you can go back one. But what we're looking to do in the market is really develop on top of that. So as you can imagine, with the 2.1 or so million vehicles that we have connected, the customers reach out to us and have different requests or demands as the market evolves. And so one of those is this whole concept of car sharing. Understanding it's not the newest concept in the world, but just the market wasn't technically ready for this advanced type of technology, I would say, in the last few years. Geotab decided to pursue this market, just again, depending on the feedback that we provided by our customers. And so when you're looking at the overall technology stack and the scope, everything again goes back to the brains that we provide with the telematics device. It's the Geotab Go 9 device. And then we have what's called IOXs, input-out expandability cables, that we do. So basically, the way that we get this keyless functionality to work, so you can share multiple assets in a public car shared space or a government motor pool or last mile delivery fleet, is actually take the OEM key fob and we'll embed it into this IOX keyless, and then we'll hook it up to the USB port, and that allows us to send commands to a mobile application or an NFC reader or a card to perform the lock, unlock. And everything that we're doing is we're working with best-in-class reservation partners that interact as a UI face as well, so you can find the location using our GPS data from the actual telematics device, pull things like current state of charge, which is super important, or prioritize vehicles that might have the lowest mileage as well, so you can maximize utilization in this motor pool type of environment. Next slide, please. So another really interesting way that fleets are able to manage these vehicles now is remotely. So we do work in two different fashions, one with the cellular connectivity and another via Bluetooth. In order to manage the vehicles remotely, it does require cell connectivity. But as you can imagine, if you lock yourself out of a vehicle, if you, in a public car share instance, you forgot your wallet and you don't have access to that vehicle, you can call up their customer support and say, hey, I forgot my wallet in the vehicle. Can you please send a command to help me out and unlock the vehicle? You're absolutely able to do that. Another way is when you're thinking about preventative maintenance from these large organizations, talking to one of our large customers who's a delivery fleet, what they want to do is actually be able to identify vehicles that, say, have a check engine light on or a hard trouble code and send a command over the air to inhibit the start of that vehicle. So one of their drivers won't have access to actually get that vehicle and perform their duties for the day. Instead, they would send a digital key to, say, a mechanic. Mechanic would go out, perform the duties to get the vehicle right as it should be for whatever the diagnostic code was. And then they would put it back into the fleet so that the drivers can access it again, all through a digital key. They wouldn't need the physical key anymore. Next slide. And when you're now the next part, aside from managing the vehicles remotely, is the actual interaction through the end customer as well. So what's unique about the way that we developed our technology, we again work with different reservation partners that tie it all together from the user aspect. So you can use a mobile application or an NFC tag, which is very common in government motor pools because they don't always enforce using mobile phones to access the vehicles. But what we can do is we use Bluetooth connectivity that works from the phone and communicates directly to that iOX keyless and the Go9 telematics device, which stores all the authenticated digital keys, basically these Bluetooth tokens. And you can send commands back and forth with the Bluetooth instance, which is very important for instances where somebody has vehicles that are parked under a garage, or if you're out of cellular connectivity. If you don't have cell connectivity, then you can't access that vehicle. So the way around this is by building in this communication via Bluetooth as well. And when you're thinking of, what can you do from a cost perspective, you guys probably all know it's super expensive to have people manage the physical keys. Keys get lost all of the time. So from the aspect of reducing labor costs to the amount of keys that you would lose in a more of a shared environment, it just really does pay for the system in itself at that aspect as well. When you're thinking about how can I apply this to my fleet and what are the actual dollars I can save, that's just one instance of it. Next slide. And so as I mentioned, so Geotab, we develop all the hardware, the telematics software, but instead of creating our own reservation system where you manage the users and the interaction with the driver, we decided to partner with best-in-class reservation partners. So as of today, we do have 5 different partners: Fleetster, EchoCar, Move Connected, Wonder Mobility, and RideCell. RideCell I've actually worked on incorporating their motor pool solution on the state of California contract, which makes it super easy for our government clients in California to directly procure because it often takes RFPs where people have to issue, I want to work with just telematics, or if I want to work with the car share solution. So that's one of the strategic ideas that we did moving forward, was what contracts do we have existing and what can we place on there. So now it's just super easy to procure telematics and then the motor pool solution on top of it as well. Another important thing to mention here is we do have open architecture, open APIs. And so instead of working with one of the reservation partners, some of these larger enterprise organizations do have their own interface that they can directly just pull our integration and APIs and feed to their own platform and provide that user interface as well. Wouldn't make much sense for some of the government clients we work with to do that, but definitely the larger delivery fleets or commercial customers makes a ton of sense. Next slide, please. And so I'm just going to walk through as an example, one of our reservation partners is Fleetster. These can all be customized, look and feel how you'd want it to as a white label, but they all kind of work and feel the same way. So as an example, I go and say I want to do a business trip. I would just select the time and date of where I want the vehicle, and it'll give me the list of options as well. Now, if it's a public car share, you can list out the costs associated to it, vehicles that might have the lowest mileage, highest state of charge, as an example, and then you would complete the booking. Next slide. And again, now when it's time for me to go up to my reservation from that vehicle, can basically be on demand as well, if you want to, rather than that whole reservation system. But it would use the telematics device or curve logging to locate the vehicle. You have the keypad locks here to lock, unlock. You can do a panic button or the horn hop to find the vehicle as well, all done through the mobile application. And then once you're done with the vehicle, you can go back and finish the booking. Now, it's also interesting to know that you can put, I guess, geofences or zones around a certain location. So as you're thinking about a free-floating public car share company, maybe you don't want them to end their reservation in a certain zone, red zones or whatever the case is. So you can geofence it off and set it up in the application where somebody can't physically end that reservation until they're out of that geofence zone, because it's pulling all this data from the telematics device, which is pretty powerful in that in itself. Next slide, please. And so finally, from the FleetStar application, it's super important to go through and document any damages as well from a pre-trip or post-trip inspection. You can go through and say, okay, the front bumper here was cracked. I'm going to take a picture and upload that. It just really helps out from the documentation aspect as well. Next slide. And I do have just 2 more slides. I'll talk very quickly to it here. Again, one of the benefits I talked about outside of just the car sharing technology that we have with keyless is really all the added functionality that we have from Geotab as well. So we work with over 100 different makes and models of electric vehicles that we're putting to charge, driving energy, charging energy. Same thing for ICE vehicles. If we want to understand fuel consumption or remaining fuel, just important aspects that you would tie into your vehicle. Also things like, was there an accident that occurred because the device has an accelerometer in it, and you can actually reconstruct the accident as well. Next slide. And then lastly, just on top of that, because we have such a vast network of customers that we work with, we use Google Cloud as our partner. So we aggregate a ton of this data and provide really meaningful insights to some of these customers, working with counties, cities, states to figure out things like the traffic flow or the most dangerous intersection in a specific city as well, because we can pull events on, accident levels or harsh braking events. And then also what's super important, I think, for people on this call is we can understand which vehicles in a fleet would be best suited to help us equip with air quality mapping. So we can get maybe a low-cost sensor for air quality and put those on the vehicles that are making the most passes in a certain area and actually get block-by-block air quality monitoring type of analytics, which is super important to help you if you're understanding your goals for different metrics for air quality that you guys have put in place for the states, cities, and counties as well. So that's it, Gina. Thank you for going through the slides there.
Nate, this is Tim, and I had a question on the air quality. I'm sorry, Gina.
No. I was just going to jump up and down how excited I am to try this out. Go ahead, Tim.
On the air quality sensor, where does the data end up getting displayed? Does it go up the purple air, or does it go to some other place where it's displayed for does it only go to a proprietary site? How is that uploaded to a place where it's available?
It would totally depend on who you wanted to partner with as well. There's multiple air quality sensors out there, and we would just need to tie an integration into basically Geotab to do that. We can build some integration, maybe it lives within the Geotab platform, or it can just feed directly out of it as well. But I guess the main purpose here is just identifying which vehicles can be a great mobile sensor roaming around that are making the most passes. Because it wouldn't make sense to put it on a vehicle that's going by a school zone once every month. It'd be a lot better if you put it, say, on maybe a refuse truck where it's going by that school zone at least once a week.
So the device is not, the Geotab doesn't have anything to do with the device that's mounted or the transmission of that data, just identifying the most appropriate vehicle to use for sensing data in a given area?
That is correct. Yep.
And then you didn't talk, at least I didn't really catch too much about the configuration of the reservation platform. I know it's FleetStar or one of the others, to make it possible for either the driver to reserve a car and drive it, or for the client to reserve a car but not drive it. Could you just quickly cover that?
Yeah, so what would really be needed from the Geotab aspect is getting the vehicle equipped with the hardware, the necessary hardware, the Go9 telematics device, the iOX keyless, And then we can do some remote testing from our end to test the lock unlock remotely. And then from there, we would decide, well, you guys would decide which partner you want to work with from the reservation aspect. And then essentially they're using our APIs, our keyless APIs, to pull that data into it. So it's not a heavy lift at all from the end user or the customer. We just need to set up tenants within the My Geotab database and provide them access to pull all that analytics that they would need to. And then they would do that all in the background. And they can configure it to however you want, right? So maybe you just want the drivers to access it, or maybe you don't want the drivers to drive it, but instead see which vehicles are available at what time, and make a, communicate that to whoever the fleet administrator is or whoever's coordinating that in order to streamline the operations.
Thank you.
Hi, Nate. I have a question. This is Angelina. When you were talking about the smart cities, I was wondering, maybe you explained it and I missed it. Do you have programs that can find the best route for pre-planned routes based on accidents, air quality, and other factors?
I don't know if we would make per se recommendations on a routing aspect, but we can use our data essentially for understanding where traffic is, right? Because we're looking at all of the aggregated data. And as you can imagine, if you have the entire state of California using it with 40,000 assets plus the other 60 to 80,000 vehicles in California, you can get really granular insights at certain traffic congestion at the time of the day, this intersection versus that. And then also we're using all of that aggregated data from the harsh braking or accident levels at certain intersections, which would, provide the insights to say, okay, this is a super dangerous intersection for whatever reason, we don't know. But in ITS, you can send somebody out to investigate it. And if it helps support the, the Vision Zero type of concept that many of these larger cities have today, they can use that type of smart city data to make the analysis. And it's pretty powerful once you have so many people on one platform. So that's I guess, kind of the gist of it.